Speaking of eras, a new era started at UCF. Last year, UCF was at the group of five level. They spent their last year in the American Conference. And, it was a good previous year in the American Conference for UCF and all. They did end up making it to the conference championship game in the American before losing to Tulane. And Tulane did end up doing big things, going on and beating USC in the Cotton Bowl. We all know this. But now UCF makes their debut with the big boys. They are now in the Power Five, and they are now new full-fledged members of the Big 12. And they started their era of Big 12 football at their own home stadium, and they hosted the Kent State Golden Flashes, which was a solid team this past season. I believe ended up making to a bowl game, if I'm not mistaken, but Kent State did end up getting absolutely ravaged by the transfer portal. But we'll put it this way. The home stadium nickname for UCF is the Bounce House, and the house was bouncing early, and it was bouncing often in Orlando, Florida. UCF ends up beating Kent State 56-6. It was an absolute blowout of a game. Shout out to UCF. And UCF's got a good coach, too. They got Gus Malzahn. He's the head coach of the UCF Knights, and he knows how to win. He's someone that already has won a national championship at Auburn. Auburn not been the same since we did end up seeing them fire him. But Gus Malzahn is a solid coach. He's a solid coach, and they got a good quarterback as well. John Rice Plumlee once again show that he is a premium dual threat quarterback that you would love to have in today's college football. Guy that can both run and pass. Plumlee ended up throwing for over 280 yards while also rushing for an additional 90 yards. And he did that on the way to 4 touchdowns to lead the Knights to victory. Now, you're going to see the score, but why are you getting excited about UCF? I already know that's coming. They only played Kent State. Here's a saying that I always hear from my brother, right? Good teams win, great teams cover. And UCF was a great team today. They ended up covering against Kent State. UCF, they finalized at a 35-point favorite, which is not an easy spread to cover. Asking a team to win by 35 is not easy for most teams. Many teams do not win by 35 against fellow FBS opponents. Well, UCF did. And UCF certainly took advantage of a Kent State team that is still trying to figure out its offensive identity still. This is a Kent State team that did not have a singular offensive starter. So it's a whole new group of guys starting for the Golden Flashes this year on offense. And then they only have 4 other starters on defense. This is a whole new team. And this stems from the departure of Sean Lewis. He was, I believe, the head coach of Kent State last year. He departs for Colorado to be the offensive coordinator under Deion Sanders. So you now got a new head coach in Kenny Burns. And this was a tough day for Kent State. The Golden Flashes only crossed midfield. Forget about scoring touchdowns. Let's forget that for a moment. They didn't cross midfield on half of their drives in the game. They had 12 total drives. They only managed to cross midfield half of the time. And in those 6 times, they attempted 3 field goals, one of them being missed, and they didn't have a single play in the red zone. So lockdown defense by UCF, being a Power 5 team, you did what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to embarrass this opponent on the field, and that's exactly what they did. UCF embarrassed the Golden Flashes today, and they do so in a big way. UCF, they didn't even win the turnover battle. That's the crazy part in all of this. They lost the turnover battle 3-1, and they still dominated. It didn't matter. And you know why it didn't matter? UCF had over 700 yards of total offense. That's even harder to do given that we have this running clock rule now where the clock only stops on first downs like inside the 2-minute mark. not a fan of that rule, but listen, the average people sometimes are in charge of great things. And that's a conversation for a different time. Not a fan of that rule now that I've seen it in action, but it is what it is. UCF still had over 700 yards of total offense. Kent State, they had only 240 total yards on the day. And there could be some growing pains at Kent State this year. In that power rating system that I showed you guys earlier in this podcast and earlier in the show, I didn't show, so I power rated all 133 teams in the FBS. And if my memory serves me correctly, I don't have the model up on me right now, but I'm pretty sure I have Kent State as the new worst team in the country, since UMass seems to actually have a pulse. And it's not going to get any easier for Kent State moving forward. They're going to go on the road once again next weekend. They're going to take on Arkansas. That's not going to be an easy thing for Kent State to deal with. Now, Kent State is used to this. They had a really difficult non-conference schedule last year. It was extremely difficult. Probably the most difficult non-conference slates that any college football team could put together at the higher end of Division I football. But they'll take on Arkansas on the road next weekend. Arkansas, a team that is borderline top 25 team for me in terms of my power rating system. So it's not going to get any easier for Kent State. Hopefully they can get some things together. And then you're looking at UCF. Who the UCF has going forward? They'll have another intriguing game. They'll go on the road. They'll take on Boise State. Boise State, my favorite still to win the Mountain West. And they got to go to Boise to get this done too. I'm really intrigued by how this game is going to go. But UCF carrying a lot of momentum going into that week. Hopefully we'll see if they can get it done. They will wrap up their non-conference slate against Villanova, an FCS school, and then they will get into their first ever Big 12 slate. So UCF, an interesting team to watch. We'll see how they do against Boise State. Other than that, great win for UCF, as for me, this was the most impressive result that I saw for Thursday night football, at least on the college end.